Greetings to one and all. This will be my 8th tutorial on how to play a Ventrue character vampire in Vampire the Masquerade role-playing game, and in this video I will teach you the combat system of the game. It is complicated, but I will do my best. However, even though I played the game for a time, I am no expert. So if you see me make a mistake, feel free to point it out in the comments. Vampire uses 10-sided dice for each action you can take, and the success of every action is determined by rolling a certain number of dice, determined by your character sheet. This dice number is called a dice pool, and is most often equal to the value of one of your attributes plus the value of one of your abilities. Which attribute and which ability is predetermined by the book. If you don't know, the ST can tell you, but for many you can use logic. Shooting is dexterity plus firearms. Eavesdropping is wits plus subterfuge. Fists are dexterity plus brawl. Lying is charisma plus performance, and so on. There are two types of actions you can make. The first are unresisted actions, when your role is opposed by the circumstances of your situation. The second are resisted actions, when two players are rolling against each other. In an unresisted action, the ST must first tell you the difficulty, which is most often 6. Then you determine the number of dice in your dice pool for that action and make the roll. Lastly, you count the dice which came up as higher or equal to the difficulty. One success die is all you need, but the more of them there are, the better you performed. If all dice came up smaller than the difficulty, you have failed in your action. For example, you want to break down the door. Let's say that you use a combination of strength and athletics to do that. That gives you a dice pool of 4 dice. The ST tells you that the difficulty is 6. You make the roll, and the dice come up as 3, 3, 6, and 7. You scored 2 successes, so you succeeded and the door broke. But if you get 3, 2, 4, and 5, the door resisted your attempt to break it down. If that happens, you may try again, but the ST may choose to increase the difficulty by 1 for each consecutive attempt. When you are using an attribute or an ability that has 4 dots or more on your sheet, every 10 in your roll is considered as 2 successes. On the other hand, if you have a 1 in your roll, it is cancelling out one of the successes. If you scored no successes and also have a 1 in your roll, that is called a botch. Not only that you failed, but also something bad happens to you. Let's say that in our previous example you get 9, 1, 1, and 2. 9 is cancelled out by the first one, and the second one makes this a botched action. So not only that you failed, you also banged your head on the door in your misplaced impact. As there are catastrophic failures, there are also automatic successes. If the number of dice in your dice pool is greater than the difficulty, the roll is not needed, and you may choose to make it an automatic success. Alternatively, you may spend a willpower point to make it an automatic success, but only if you declare that you use a willpower point before rolling the dice, and if the ST allows willpower to be used for that in the first place. Bear in mind, though, that these successes are considered marginal at best. There are also extended actions, when you need multiple turns to achieve your objective. For example, you are out in the wild and want to dig yourself a hole to sleep in before dawn. The ST tells you that you need to score 15 successes to accomplish this. So, in the first turn, you roll your dice and achieve 3 successes. In the second, you score 2 successes more. In the third, you score no successes. In the next turn, you score 4 successes, and so on. If at any turn you botch, you will probably have to start over, again, depending on the SD. Teamwork is also possible. If the SD deems the action as such, several players can try to achieve one thing together by summing up their individual success rolls. This isn't just for extended actions. Lastly, there are multiple actions, where you try to accomplish several things at once. For example, you are driving, fleeing your pursuers, and your passenger is making a fuss. You try to do two actions simultaneously, intimidate the passenger into shutting up, and making a sharp right turn. Let's say both actions have a difficulty of 6. For the sharp turn, you use dexterity plus drive, which gives you 5 dice in that pool. And for intimidation, you use charisma plus intimidate, which gives you 7 dice in that pool. Since multitasking is naturally difficult, you take the smaller dice pool and split it between these two actions. For example, 3 dice for driving and 2 dice for settling the passenger down. This is called splitting the dice pool, and it can be very useful, because you may yet accomplish something. After all you need is one success in a dice pool for it to be a successful action. And bear in mind that action cannot be performed with 0 dice in your dice pool. Resisted actions are when your dice pool is set against another player's dice pool. Combat is an example of a resisted action, as well as trying to intimidate someone, use a discipline on someone, lie, seduce, persuade, and so on. As I've said, combat is done in turns. Every turn starts by everyone declaring their initiative. This is determined by the sum of your dexterity, wits, and the roll of a single die, though an SD may opt to make it dexterity plus wits plus 6. Next, everyone states clearly which action they will take during this turn. The one with the higher initiative will state his action last, because high initiative means he can react better to other players' actions. An action can be a frontal attack, or it can be one of the combat maneuvers, like flank, dodge, block, parry, ambush, and so on. Then, action rolls will be made. This time, the player with the highest initiative will roll first. Standard difficulty for combat actions is 6, and both combatants pit their dice pools against each other to see who can score more successes. A botch is also a possibility here. For example, a Ventrue is throwing a knife at a Bruja, who is shooting a gun at the Ventrue. The Ventrue uses dexterity plus athletics, which makes a dice pool of 5 dice. The Bruja is using dexterity plus firearms, which makes a dice pool of 6 dice. The Ventrue gets 2 successes, and the Bruja gets 3 successes. Thus, the Bruja succeeds in hitting the Ventrue. If they have the same number of successes, both have missed. Now I will teach you how to cause damage. The one who scored more successes gets to do a damage roll. A damage roll cannot botch, only fail. Assembling a damage roll dice pool depends on the type of your weapon and the maneuver you are performing. For example, you scored 4 successes on your action roll, and you get to do a damage roll against a gangrel who scored 2 on his action roll. Depending on what you declared as your action on the initiative, you calculate your damage dice pool as so. Brawling is done without a weapon, meaning punches and kicks, and the damage dice pool is your strength plus your successes minus opponent's successes minus 1. If this Ventrue's strength is 2, then his damage dice pool in this instance is 2 plus 4 minus 2 minus 1, which equals 3 dice. Same goes for ranged weapons like bows, crossbows, throwing knives, and such. Melee is done with blades and blunt instruments, like clubs and bats. The damage dice pool is equal to the weapon's damage rating, plus your successes minus opponent's successes minus 1. Firearms gives you a damage dice pool equal only to the rating of the weapon itself. Combat maneuvers of both you and your opponent also affect this dice pool. This includes things like block, dodge, parry, ambush, flank, blindness, and so on. Now I will teach you how to resist the damage. Let's say that the Bruja is shooting a gun at you and has 4 dice in his damage dice pool. After the damage roll, the Ventrue automatically makes a soak roll to try and resist the damage. This is done with a dice pool equal to your stamina, plus being a Ventrue, you add the rating of your fortitude discipline as well. Every success you score cancels out one of the damage successes of your enemy that your enemy has made. Like damage rolls, soak rolls cannot botch, only fail. Also, armor adds to your character's soak. Light armor offers a small amount of protection, but it has no dexterity penalties. Heavy armor provides a lot of protection, but it carries dice penalties on your dexterity. In the end, the resulting damage is marked on your character's sheet. Once you are sufficiently wounded, you will start to suffer health penalties. These penalties reduce your dice pool for subsequent actions and will continue to do so until you heal the damage. If your dice pool drops to 0 dice, you may not do that action and will have to switch to an action with a larger pool. Note that this does not affect reflexive actions like damage rolls, soak rolls, self-control checks, and so on. These penalties aren't cumulative. For example, if you reach the crippled level of damage, your dice pool will be reduced by 5 dice, not by 11 dice. You may spend a willpower point to ignore health penalties for 1 turn. Alternatively, you can heal 1 level of bashing or lethal damage by spending a blood point. This will take 1 turn, during which your opponent may still attack you. If you are higher generation, you can use several blood points per turn. There are 3 types of damage: bashing, made with blunt instruments and guns; lethal, made with blades and gunshots to critical areas; and aggravated, which includes things like sunlight, fire, fangs and claws of supernatural beings, and so on. Aggravated damage can be soaked with fortitude alone, and bashing and lethal damage can be soaked with a combination of stamina and fortitude. Also, for vampires, bashing damage is cut in half before being marked on your character's sheet. Armor will protect you against bashing, lethal, and aggravated damage from teeth and claws. It does not protect against fire or sunlight. Also, armor is not indestructible. If the damage rolled in a single attack equals twice the armor's rating, the armor is destroyed. Teamwork and dice pool splitting are also possible during a combat turn, following the rules I described earlier. If, thanks to the initiative roll, you get to react to what your opponent will do to you, you can simultaneously defend from his attack and attack him back. Or you can decide to put your entire dice pool into just defending or just attacking. If during the initiative you declared 1 action, and before you actually roll the dice you changed your mind and want to do something else, you may. This is called aborting an action. To be allowed to abort an action, you must first score a success by rolling a dice pool made of your remaining willpower points against a difficulty of 6, or by spending a willpower point. Vampiric blood is very potent and can be used in combat either to make you stronger or to heal your non-aggravated wounds. Depending on your generation, you may spend 1 blood point per turn or several points per turn. A blood point can increase a single physical and only physical attribute by 1 for the duration of the entire combat scene. But you must announce at the beginning of a turn that you are doing a blood buff. You cannot blood buff your stats beyond the maximum of your generation. Alternatively, you can spend a turn healing 1 level of your bashing or lethal wounds. For aggravated wounds, you must spend 5 blood points in order to heal a level of aggravated damage the next night. Lastly, I will speak about willpower. You can spend your willpower points to get automatic successes for your actions, to abort your initial actions in favor of others, to resist your instincts like frenzy, and to ignore wound penalties for 1 turn. You regain spent willpower points in different ways at the ST's discretion. With every new story, your willpower is fully restored. Alternatively, the ST may grant you 1 willpower point when you wake up each evening, or when you accomplish a goal, or when you act in accordance with your nature. Pay attention to that and choose a good one at character creation. That is the end of my 8th tutorial. In the description of this video you will find the links I used to create this. I hope you have found this useful, and I will see you again soon.